I wasn't supposed to check her phone. I know that. But when you've been waking up alone for the third night in a row, staring at your cold side of the bed and wondering if she even notices your absence, something inside you snaps. Her name is Celeste, my wife of 7 years. Smart, beautiful, polished like a diamond, and just as cold. She's a regional marketing executive, always flying out, always too busy, always closing something. And I'm Everett, the husband who used to make her coffee every morning and now barely gets a thanks. She left last Thursday, suitcase in one hand, phone in the other. Told me it was a 3-day conference in Phoenix. Kissed me on the cheek like a colleague. No softness, no warmth. I watched her drive off and something inside me screamed, she's lying. That night, I stared at the ceiling until 3 a.m. Her texts were dry, robotic. No selfies. No Miss US. Just busy, talk tomorrow, and long day. Celeste was many things, but never this dull. Not unless she was hiding something. The next morning, I couldn't stop thinking about that smile she gave me before leaving. It wasn't a goodbye. It was a dismissal, like she was brushing off a coworker before heading out to a spa weekend. It made my skin crawl. So I did something I never thought I would. I used the Find My Phone app. And what I saw? She was in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Not Phoenix. Not anywhere near her supposed conference. My hands went numb. My heart dropped. But I couldn't cry. Not yet. I told my boss I had a family emergency, packed an overnight bag, and started driving east. I told myself I just needed answers, that maybe it was a mix-up, or maybe she just needed space. But that was a lie. I needed to catch her, needed to see it for myself. By the time I pulled into Santa Fe that evening, I hadn't eaten. My palms were sweating. Her dot was still on the screen, somewhere in a quiet suburban neighborhood. I parked a block away from the location and walked on foot. Each step felt heavier than the last. I imagined all the possible scenarios. A fling? A getaway with coworkers? A friend in need? But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for what I saw when I turned the corner. Celeste, laughing, in yoga pants and a sundress, holding the hand of a small child. A little girl, maybe 4 years old. And next to her, a man, tall, athletic, handsome in that effortless way. He kissed her forehead like it was second nature. Like he did it every day. My stomach turned. This wasn't an affair. This was a life. My wife had a second family, and I had no idea who she was anymore. I didn't move. I stood frozen behind a hedge, half shielded by a creaky mailbox with peeling paint, watching my wife. No, some stranger in my wife's skin, live a lie right in front of me. She looked radiant. Not in the way she used to when she walked down the aisle. Not like when we danced barefoot in the kitchen eating Chinese takeout at midnight. No, this was different. It was real joy. That kind of effortless glow you can't fake. The kind you reserve for home. She bent down to wipe the little girl's mouth. The man laughed. The child threw her arms around Celeste's neck. And my insides twisted so violently, I almost vomited right there in the bushes. I wanted to scream, to run up and demand answers. But I didn't. I just watched. Coward. She never looked at me that way, not in years. Her smiles for me had become hollow, polite, scheduled. But with them, it was like she was breathing oxygen for the first time. Like they were her son, and I had just been some backup flashlight all these years. I remembered the last time she hugged me. It was 6 months ago. My father had just passed. I was crumbling inside, sobbing into her shoulder. She stood stiff as a mannequin, patting my back like I was a coworker who spilled coffee. No warmth. No love. Just obligation. And now she was kissing this man on the lips like it was her Saturday routine, wiping crumbs off their daughter's shirt. The three of them walked into a small blue house with flower pots on the porch, her house, and the door shut behind them like a coffin lid. I staggered back to my car, barely able to breathe. My head felt stuffed with cotton and broken glass. Why? Why wasn't I enough? Was I boring? Too safe? Did she always dream of escaping me, of building a perfect suburban fairy tale without the weight of me dragging her down? I opened the glove compartment and pulled out a crumpled grocery receipt from last week. On it, I'd scribbled a list of things to pick up for Celeste before her trip: almond milk, strawberries, that overpriced vegan shampoo she liked. I remembered feeling good about it. Proud, even. God, what a joke. While I stood in line buying kale and baby wipes she didn't need, she was probably already planning bedtime stories for a child who called her mommy. And what was I? A placeholder? An afterthought? Or just insurance? I drove to a motel on the outskirts of town, the kind with faded carpets and vending machines that eat your quarters. I collapsed onto the bed and stared at the popcorn ceiling, wondering how long this had been going on. Months? Years? Did she laugh at me behind my back? Did that little girl know my name? Did the man in the house even know I existed? I didn't sleep, just curled up fully clothed, listening to the hum of the air conditioner and the buzz of betrayal screaming in my skull. I had to know more. Tomorrow, I'd follow her again. But tonight I allowed myself to break. I woke up in that musty motel room feeling like I hadn't slept in years. My body ached, not from the bed, but from truth. From the weight of a life that had quietly collapsed while I was busy taking out the trash and paying utility bills. Celeste was only 10 minutes away. 10 minutes from me. 10 years from the version of herself she showed me. And all I could do was lie there in wrinkled clothes, wondering what else she'd stolen. Not just my trust, not just my love, but my identity. Because if she could fake a marriage, our marriage, with such precision, then who the hell was I? Just a fool with a ring and a bank account? I drove back to that suburban street around noon. Parked further this time. Didn't want to be seen. Didn't want to exist. I watched the blue house through tinted windows, sipping lukewarm motel coffee and chewing on the past like a dog with a bone full of nails. The yard was clean. The flower pots freshly watered. Her lover's car was in the driveway, a silver sedan with a license plate frame that read #OneDad. I laughed. A short, bitter sound. He got the title, the child, the smile. And what did I get? Receipts. Silence. And a gut full of acid. Around 12:30, the front door opened. There she was, Celeste, dressed in a soft white sweater and jeans. Casual. Domestic. Like a woman who spent her Saturdays baking banana bread and reading bedtime stories. She was carrying a tray, sandwiches, maybe, and set it down on a patio table. The little girl skipped out after her, followed by the man. He scooped the child up onto his shoulders, and Celeste snapped a photo with her phone. It hit me like a punch to the ribs. She never took pictures with me. The last time I asked her to take a selfie, our anniversary, a quiet dinner, she rolled her eyes and said, "We're not teenagers." But here she was, capturing the moment like a proud wife, like this was her family album. I suddenly needed answers. I needed names, dates, something. I waited until they went back inside. Then I got out of my car, heart pounding, legs shaking, and walked to the mailbox in front of their house. It read, the Raymonds in tacky cursive. Raymond? Her maiden name was Cooper. So, had she married him? Was this legal? My stomach turned. I opened my phone and searched public records on the county site, hands trembling. I knew it was a long shot, but when I typed in her full name and cross-referenced with the address, something popped up. Celeste and Raymond, residential co-owners since 2021. Co-owner. She owned this house with him. They'd been playing house, real, documented, mortgage-paying house, for over 2 years. While I was cleaning the gutters back home, she was signing escrow papers with another man. My vision blurred. My knees gave out, and I sank onto the curb like a drunk. A neighbor glanced at me from across the street, narrowed her eyes, then went back inside. I didn't blame her. I looked like a mess. A man unraveling. Because I was. And the worst part? I wasn't even surprised anymore. Just numb. I sat there until the sun dipped low and the lights came on inside the house. And then I made a decision. Tomorrow, I'd go even deeper. I'd get close. Not just spy from across the street. I wanted to hear her voice. I wanted to know what lies sounded like when they weren't sent by text. Because now, I needed more than the truth. I needed revenge. The next morning, I woke up with a plan. I wouldn't just watch from a distance anymore. That was cowardly. That was Everett the doormat. The man she left behind to rot while she started a whole other life with flower pots, patio lunches, and that child calling her mommy. No. Today, I'd get closer. I put on a clean shirt. Well, as clean as I had in my crumpled duffel, and walked into town like I belonged there. Like I wasn't falling apart inside. Like I wasn't about to confront the biggest betrayal of my life. Santa Fe was charming in that artsy, fake-happy way. Adobe buildings, overpriced galleries, couples laughing with ice cream cones. It felt like a movie set, like the kind of place she would choose to play out her fantasy. I stopped at a local coffee shop just a few blocks from the Blue House. Ordered a black coffee I barely tasted. Then I waited. I watched. At 10:17 a.m., the bell above the door jingled. And there she was, Celeste, wearing sunglasses, hair tied back, carrying a reusable tote. Casual, confident, untouchable. She stood just 10 feet from me, completely unaware that the man she left behind The husband who fixed her brakes and rubbed her feet when she pretended to have migraines was sitting 3 tables away. And I'll be honest, I expected to feel anger. But what I felt was grief. Because even in that moment, some pathetic part of me still loved her. Still wanted her to turn and say, "Everett, what are you doing here?" and pull me into her arms and say it had all been a dream. Instead, she ordered a vanilla oat latte with almond biscotti, her favorite, the same one I used to bring her every Sunday, and sat down by the window. And then it happened. She took off her sunglasses and looked at me, dead in the eyes. For a second, time just stopped. My breath caught in my throat. My body turned to ice. Did she recognize me? But her face didn't change. Not a flicker, not a gasp, not a twitch. She just looked away, calmly sipped her latte, and scrolled through her phone like I was nobody. Like I didn't exist. Like I hadn't spent the last 7 years giving her every piece of myself. That was the moment I knew. She wasn't hiding. She wasn't ashamed. She simply didn't care. I left the cafe in a fog. My hands were shaking. My teeth clenched so hard they hurt. The image of her, unbothered, glowing, free, burned behind my eyes like acid. I wasn't just a man she cheated on. I was a man she erased. That night, I sat in my car staring at the darkened windows of the blue house, and I thought about the child. The girl. She couldn't have been more than 4 or 5, which meant Celeste had her while we were still married. Which meant everything was a lie. The anniversaries, the holidays, even the day we lost our dog. I held her while she cried, and all the while she was hiding a baby bump in another city. I wanted to scream until my lungs turned inside out. But instead, I pulled out my phone and opened the voice recorder. If she wanted to live 2 lives, I'd make sure everyone knew what the second one looked like. Because the world was about to meet Mrs. Celeste Raymond, fraud, liar, and mother of a child her husband never even knew existed. I couldn't sleep again. Not because of the motel sheets that smelled like old socks and citrus cleaner. Not because of the drunk guy shouting outside my window, but because of her eyes. Or rather, the absence of anything in them when she looked at me. No surprise. No guilt. Just blankness. I was a ghost. A glitch in her matrix. By 7 a.m., I was in my car again. I didn't even brush my teeth. Just threw on a hoodie, shoved a protein bar in my mouth, and checked the app. Her location, Fort Marcy Park. A playground. That little girl must have wanted to swing. I parked a few streets down, heart thudding in my throat. I knew this was risky. Broad daylight. Parents around. But I had to see it. I had to hear how she spoke to that child. If I ever wanted closure, I needed proof that she truly replaced me and never looked back. I stood behind a crooked row of pine trees, hidden but close enough to see clearly. There they were. Celeste pushing the girl gently on a swing, laughing, like the world wasn't dripping with rot. Like she wasn't living in a spiderweb of lies. The man wasn't there this time. Just her and the girl. I noticed the child's hair, same waves as Celeste. Same nose. Same little frown when she concentrated. Then the girl said something. It was soft, nearly lost in the breeze. But I heard it. "Mommy, is Daddy coming later?" My knees buckled. I had to grip the tree to stay upright. Not a daddy. Not my daddy. Daddy. She called him that. The man who held her hand. The man who lived in the blue house. The man who wasn't me. It was real. Not some elaborate fling or twisted roleplay. Celeste had rebuilt her world with someone else and given him my title. She even gave him what I always wanted, and she always claimed she didn't. A child. God, we used to fight about kids. She said she wasn't ready. Said her career came first. I respected that. I supported her. I even turned down a promotion that would have moved us across the country because she said she wasn't sure about uprooting her routine. But now here she was, living that exact life with someone else. She didn't fear change. She just didn't want it with me. I started to hyperventilate. I stumbled back through the trees and collapsed behind a bush like some winded animal. My vision blurred. My ears rang. A part of me wanted to walk into traffic. But another part? That part was sharpening. Focused. Alive. Because now I knew the stakes. She hadn't just cheated on me. She'd replaced me. And she was thriving. The world needed to see this. Her colleagues, her parents, her Facebook friends who thought she was a strong, successful businesswoman. I would expose the truth behind the curtain of her perfect life. I drove to an electronics store, bought a high-quality camera, a long lens, and a mini voice recorder. My hands were still trembling, but now it wasn't just grief. It was intention. This wasn't over. Not until she felt every ounce of what she made me feel. I became someone else that week. Not Everett the husband. Not Everett, the mild-mannered IT technician who bought reusable grocery bags and folded laundry before bed. I became Everett the ghost hunter. Because the woman I married, she was gone. And what was left? This stranger with warm hands and a cooler heart. I had to hunt down like a phantom. With the new camera and lens, I began building my case. I parked 2 houses down from the blue home, windows cracked, lens aimed. Celeste left every morning around 8 o'clock, like clockwork. She'd kissed that man. I later learned his name was Declan Raymond. Goodbye on the front steps. She'd lean in, smooth his collar like she owned him. The same gesture she used to give me before big work events. Except back then, it felt rehearsed. This felt devastatingly real. Then one morning, I noticed something new. A manila folder slipped from her tote bag as she loaded their kid into the car. She didn't notice. Drove off. I waited 5 full minutes, my heart sprinting like it wanted to escape my chest. Then I got out, grabbed it. Back in my car, I opened it with trembling hands. There were printed photos inside. Colorful, glossy, full-sized shots, clearly from a photographer. At first, I thought it was some branding work. Maybe a campaign shoot. But as I flipped through, my hands went numb. They were wedding photos. Her wedding. But not to me. Celeste, in an ivory lace gown I'd never seen before, barefoot in the grass, holding hands with Declan beneath a wooden arch strung with fairy lights. The little girl was there too, in a flower crown. The same smile. The same dimples. I flipped to the back of one print. A handwritten date. August 14th, 2021. We were still married then. Still sleeping in the same bed. Still filing joint taxes. I still had husband listed on my emergency contact forms. We were still going to therapy, for God's sake. She married him while legally bound to me. I dropped the photos. My stomach twisted into some unholy knot. My vision blurred again, not from tears, those had dried up, but from fury. She didn't just lie. She committed bigamy. That's a felony. It should have terrified me. Instead, it filled me with a sick clarity. I now had photos, paper trails, property records, timeline overlaps, a fully documented narrative of her double life. I could take her down, not just socially, not just emotionally, but legally. I spent the next day contacting lawyers. Most gave me the same response. It's complicated. You'll need undeniable proof. Are you sure you want to go this far? One guy, Marvin Glassner, divorce attorney out of Albuquerque, he didn't flinch. He listened. He believed me. You give me what you've got, and I'll turn her world upside down, he said. I emailed him copies of everything. Photos, voice memos, property documents, screenshots from the tracking app. And then, for the first time in a week, I slept. Not because I was at peace, but because I'd finally found a weapon sharp enough to slice through the lies. And this time, she'd bleed. I didn't plan it. Not like this. But when I saw her again at that same coffee shop, the one where she'd ignored me like I was roadkill, I couldn't take it anymore. I stood up, walked straight to her table, and said, "Hi, Celeste. Remember me? Your husband." The air left the room. She froze, cup halfway to her lips. For a full 5 seconds, she didn't speak, didn't blink. She just stared at me like I was a ghost risen from her past. Then she slowly placed the cup down. "Everett," she said, voice cold and low. "What are you doing here?" Not "oh my God," not "I can explain," not "how did you find me?" Just, "What are you doing here?" As if I was the problem. I laughed. Sharp, bitter, loud enough for 2 tables to glance over. "What am I doing here?" I echoed. "You mean, in the town where you secretly married another man and started a family while we were still married? That town." She visibly stiffened. "Keep your voice down," she hissed. "Oh, now you're worried about appearances? That's rich." She stood up, eyes darting around the cafe, then grabbed my arm and dragged me outside. Her grip was tight. I used to think her hands were delicate. Now they felt like handcuffs. We stopped by the alley next to the coffee shop. The quiet hum of traffic was the only sound. "You don't understand," she said. "This isn't what it looks like. Isn't what it looks like." I snapped. "You own a house here. You married him. You're raising a child that I didn't even know existed. Do you even hear yourself?" Her face changed. That fake sadness melted off her like wax. And what came next wasn't guilt. It was disgust. "You were always so small, Everett," she said. That's what she chose. Not denial, not apology, but humiliation. "You clung to me like a life raft. You were weak. You were boring. You were safe. Declan, he's a man. He pushes me. He challenges me. He doesn't ask for permission to be alive." I stood there, silent. as the woman I once believed I'd grow old with dismantled me word by word. And the kid? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. You said you didn't want children. I didn't, she said coldly. Not with you. That was it. That was the bullet. She shot it clean through my chest with a smile. I gave you everything, I whispered. I sacrificed. I waited. I believed in you. Even when you didn't believe in yourself. Exactly, she said, folding her arms. You treated me like a fragile doll. I didn't want a caretaker, Everett. I wanted a partner. Declan. Declan's going to lose everything, I said. She blinked. What? I know about the fake marriage. About the overlapping dates. About the child. I've spoken to a lawyer. Panic cracked through her eyes, just for a moment. Then she hardened. You wouldn't dare. I stepped forward, close enough for her to feel my breath. I dared to believe in you. That was my first mistake. You dared to build a lie on top of my life. That was yours. She opened her mouth to respond, but I was already walking away. For the first time in months, maybe years. I didn't look back, because the next time we saw each other would be in court. And this time, I'd be holding every card. The court date came faster than I expected. And for the first time in a long while, I walked into a building with purpose. I had everything. Marvin, my ironclad lawyer, had filed for divorce on grounds of bigamy and fraudulent abandonment. The judge had seen the photos, the house deed, the marriage certificate dated during our marriage. And even better, Celeste had nothing. No legal defense. No spin. Just stunned silence as her fake world cracked wide open under oath. Declan didn't even show up. Coward. She sat on the bench like a wax figure. The same woman who once told me I was safe, now stripped of her smugness, chewing her lip raw as the court awarded me everything I asked for. Our shared assets? Mine. The house back home? Mine. Even the alimony? Waived. Because Celeste was guilty of criminal misrepresentation and the court knew it. I didn't press charges. Not because I didn't want to, believe me, I dreamed of her in orange, but because it wasn't about punishment anymore. It was about peace. She tried to speak to me in the hallway after the hearing. Her voice trembled, her eyes glassy. Everett, I didn't mean to hurt you. I just nodded. Don't worry. You didn't, I said. You helped me. She blinked. Helped you? Yeah. You showed me who you were. Now I can finally become who I was supposed to be. And I meant it. Because 5 months later, I'm writing this from my new apartment in Flagstaff, Arizona. It's small, quiet, full of plants, books, and sunlight. Just how I like it. I hike now. I picked up photography. Real photography, not just hiding behind a lens to catch someone cheating. I capture landscapes, light, freedom. I even met someone. Her name is Willa. She doesn't ask me to be more exciting or less safe. She just listens, laughs with me, holds my hand like it means something. She knows everything. I told her the whole story, and she didn't flinch. She just said, "You're still standing. That makes you stronger than most." Sometimes I still wake up from the echoes, from Celeste's voice sing, "Not with you," but it no longer haunts me. It reminds me what I'll never go back to. I thought betrayal would define me, but it didn't. It refined me. And now I'm free. Truly, deeply, finally free.